Welcome to today's episode of The Verdict. Today we have another interesting topic of discussion: elections monitoring. How prepared is the church to monitor the 2021 general elections? Now, democracy is the best political system regardless of any circumstance, as it provides a peaceful means of competition for power and influence. However, opting to go the electoral route is not without risks. An important advantage can go to those who win foundational elections. It is in this delicate situation that election monitors play an important role. Election monitoring is important as it fosters peaceful elections by creating a democratic and peaceful political system. It is to this effect that the Catholic Church has decided to monitor the 2021 general elections so that things can run smoothly, to let democracy win, and so that those in the executive should not falsify the numbers, rather to win the elections. Welcome to this week's episode of the Elections Watch TV series. That is an initiative that is brought to you by the Alliance for Community Action, ACA. Your host, I'm Patrick Soko, and today on the program, I'm joined by a special guest, and that is Father EMMANUEL CHIKOYA, the Council of Churches of Zambia General Secretary. He is also part of CCMG, that is the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be on the program, and good evening to the viewers. Looking forward to fruitful engagement. I'm glad that you stated that it's Christian Churches Monitoring Group, and the Catholic and the CCZ and EFZ and JCTR are part of the consortium, and basically participating in election monitoring. Yeah.
Interesting. We are glad that you could find time to be part of the program. Now, elections are not an event but a process with different critical stages linked together. To this end, the Catholic Church the Catholic Churches Monitoring Group observes key processes prior to the elections day to enhance the credibility, transparency, and accountability in the electoral process. Now, let's start from the top. What was the outcome of the NRC issuance in terms of your observation as CCMG?
Thank you very much. We as the Christian Churches Monitoring Group, consider the issuance of NRCs as a very critical and necessary component in enabling an eligible citizen to participate in the voting process. And so it's not a by the way, it's not a casual thing, it's a very critical and a very sensitive matter in the electoral process. Remember, it's not about what happens on polling day, it's about what happens before. How do you do the issuance of NRCs? And so through our monitoring, we took particular interest in the area of NRC issuance. Why? Because we noted that even before the official announcement of the mobile issuances, in certain regions, there were ongoing activities. Certain regions that were aligned and maybe strongholds of a particular stakeholder had an unfair advantage. And so we noted that there was selected implementation of the mobile NRC issuance between October 2019 and July 2020. And so we raised alarm. We wanted to monitor, but we were stopped dead in our tracks because Minister of Home Affairs said we couldn't do so. And, they brought out some technicalities. But our question was, why hide? Why all that rigidity when you have a credible and independent stakeholder monitoring? It adds value to the transparency that you've already talked about in the introduction, And so there were issuance of more than 100%. There were targets to issue NRCs in each of the provinces. But in the perceived strongholds of the ruling party, there was 100%, issuance of NRCs, while in some regions, less than 60%, particularly those that are believed or perceived to be opposition strongholds. And so I've talked already about the need for monitoring, but it was stopped. And a number of statements were issued by ourselves calling upon Home Affairs to engage stakeholders. You cannot run elections or things that are linked to elections in a unilateral manner. You need to engage. You need to build consensus at the end of the day and be fair in terms of the exercise.
Now, let's talk about the voter registration exercise. Some sections of society complained that the process was too slow, and especially in rural areas, and other areas had inadequate staff. What caused that, according to CCMG's observation?
First and foremost, I want to categorically state that our preferred route and the constitutional, and the Constitution provides for that, is that there must be ongoing voter registration. We shouldn't be having, a discarding of the old register. We should be having a building up and a continuous exercise of capturing eligible voters. And so there were faulty equipment. I mean, the ECZ itself is on record recognizing that there were challenges with the equipment that was deployed, the gen sets, talk of staffing issues. So in some cases, some 24-hour centers were actually not operating on that basis. And I remember personally reaching out, and then something was done the following day. But the fact that these were mobile, to the larger extent, they were mobile registration processes, meant that people and the context in which we were doing this process was that it was the cultivating season, the season to plant, the season to prepare the fields. So people have to debate, get into a queue the whole day, or go and prepare my field and, get some food, obviously, when the time to harvest comes. And so there was that challenge. And so those congested centers, the queues, were a source of discouragement to many. People want to walk in, do what is necessary, and they're able to move forward. So inadequate materials, the breakdown of kits were recorded by our voter registration process observers, and our reports are there on the CCMG website for those that would want to get detailed. And we also did an analysis, and we clearly show that against the voter age population, you find that some provinces like Southern Copperbelt, Mchinga, and Central Province were below the targeted number of people that are of a voting age. At least such areas could have been given a chance to at least reach the minimum, which was 83%. But we find that some are below that, and then the extension was just about 4 days. And so those are areas of concern, and at the end of the day, they can either enhance or impact negatively the electoral process.
But were all these processes inclusive, let's say, for the elderly and persons with disabilities?
For the youth and women, one would say, okay, yeah, they were. But the differently abled, we are a long way to go. In many sectors, be it religious circles, political circles, whatever, we have challenges in terms of being user-friendly to the differently abled. But they still have the right. They are made in the image of God. They are Zambians, and they are entitled to all the rights that any other Zambian must have. So in that sense, we failed our dear friends that are differently abled, and we need to make sure that we create environments that will enhance their participation to register and also participate in voting.
I'll take you to the area question, Father Chikoya, where you explained the aspect of continuous registration, which ECZ needs to be undertaking.
Yeah.
But are there no, if the law compels them to do so, but why are they define the law? Are we being sincere as a country in terms of ensuring the rule of law?
When you begin to disregard the law, and you do so, you are likely to create a culture where there's a breakdown regarding the rule of the law. And so it's important if the law provides for continuous voter registration, we must make sure that we follow that procedure. But citizens also need to realize that our rights will never be given to us on a silver plate. We must demand for them. we must make sure that all the necessary and legal processes are followed. But sometimes they take forever to exhaust. I think there were attempts by people to, I don't even know if that court process has been exhausted, but I stand to be corrected. It takes forever. And so at the end of the day, it becomes an academic exercise. And so we need to make sure that the provisions of the law are applied without fear or favor, and no institution must be above the law.
And what came out of the voter register audit that CCMG undertook recently?
Let me say we attempted to, but we were stopped because of a provision that was passed, a statutory instrument that was passed in the last half of last year that was not really public, or not many stakeholders knew about it.
Exactly.
And so we were very interested in auditing the voter register. Why? We feel it enhances transparency. Imagine an independent institution like CCMG undertaking an independent audit of the voter register. It will enhance the work even of ECZ. But unfortunately, it is a lost opportunity, and it's something that we will never relent to talk about. We will talk about it, and especially when you talk about institutional and constitutional reforms, that these processes should be permitted. What are we hiding? What are we scared of? You know, an audit even of a financial institution of finances in an institution is not really witch hunting. It is just to confirm that you really followed the right processes. And at the end of the day, even when they issue a management report, it is issued in confidence. And it highlights where you're doing well, it highlights where there are challenges, and makes recommendations. I think that was the intention. And so it's a lost opportunity. Exactly.
Our dear viewers, in case you are joining us, you are watching the Elections Watch TV series brought to you by the Alliance for Community Action. My guest on the program today is Father Chikoya, coming from the CCMG, the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. And our topic of discussion today is election monitoring. How prepared is the church to monitor the 2021 general elections? In case you want to participate on the program, you can dial the number, which is our MTN line on 0968 675273, or our Airtel line, which is 0973 167840. The same numbers are also scrolling on your screens. You can participate on the program. Now, proceeding with our topic of discussion, Father Chikoya, can you briefly highlight the report in terms of the report on nominations of candidates exercise?
Yeah, CCMG first and foremost has deployed already. We are interested in the pre-election period. We have about 330 observers operating and bringing reports on a daily basis. And every month we issue a report. And I think we're in the process of sharing one, maybe within the course of the next week. So what we noted in terms of the nomination exercise is that there was low participation of the youth, women, and people with different disabilities. If there are any differently abled people, they could be, counted on one hand. And so we also noted that, the ECZ adhered to operating procedures, but there were political parties that felt the Commission did not provide sufficient information for the candidates to adequately be prepared. And so there were challenges, I think, and delays in some cases that can unnerve people or create unnecessary anxiety. We noted that in the process of at the centers of nominations, there were no thermal scanners in all the centers, contrary to what was announced and in line with the standard operation procedures in view of what was happening. So basically, those are the observations under the nomination processes. But things, I think, to a large extent went okay.
And that takes me to another scenario that has emerged. I would want your comment on it, where some candidates have resigned or have withdrawn from the process, and hence they have been compelled to undertake fresh nominations. But those other candidates, let's say for Lusaka Central, where Charita Rumpa pulled out of the race, and the ECZ is saying that they need to undertake fresh nominations. But the candidates, there are few, that clause is not a good one because it disadvantages the sitting, the others that have managed to pay the nomination fees and everything, and they are compelled to pay again. Just your analysis on that aspect, because we have about 4 constituencies that are going to undertake that process, which include among them Chawama, Lusaka Central and Mandevu constituency. Though for Mandevu constituency we have a unique scenario where a candidate died.
Yeah. I think in the event of death, one would say it's inevitable, but there must be, we need to make sure that whatever changes we make in terms of our electoral procedures enhances and not complicates. And so anything that complicates is retrogressive. So we need to make sure that, people can be malicious, people can be bought off, and people can be, for example, they sense that they may be defeated and they just withdraw and create a crisis. I think that is not the best of the best kind of positions to be in, and it is obviously unfair to those people that have paid because they may not have that money to pay again. Why disadvantage others who have complied, followed the processes, apart from death, which is inevitable? Why should just someone wake up and withdraw? Don't penalize those that have followed the procedure. The one to be disadvantaged must be the one that has willingly withdrawn. And a political party, when they feature somebody, of course we don't know when somebody will die, so that is an act of nature. But withdrawing is something that is a choice, and it should not be tolerated so that the other people are disadvantaged. I wouldn't agree.
I will interrupt you a bit. We seem to have a caller on the line. Hello, you are through to Camnet TV. Hello, you are through to Camnet TV.
Yes, please. I'm on standby.
Yes, you can tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
Yes, I want to make a contribution.
Okay. Your names first and where you are calling us from.
I am Charles Tumero calling from Kasam.
Okay, Mr. Tumero, you can proceed. You can proceed, sir.
Hello?
You can go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Soko, and good evening, Father Chikoya.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, I've followed a number of issues that have been highlighted in reviewing the electoral process monitored by the ECZ since last year. My question is, what should we do as a country if what we are hearing is anything to go by? That the Patriotic Front militia, of the militia, is planning to disrupt the counting of ballot papers on the election day. Because that is the energy of the West kind. And since the state government has demonstrated that it's a lawless government, what should we as a citizens do?
Okay, thank you for your contribution. We don't understand whether those claims are substantiated, but part of the question probably, Father Chikoya, you can respond to it in terms of ensuring that the elections are free and fair. I think that's where his comment is heading to. And lawlessness amongst political cadres.
Yeah, I think besides the other things that we've talked about, we are interested in promoting dialogue. We've noted that the atmosphere is politically charged and the tensions are very high, and the incidences of violence are increasing. And the Patriotic Front and the UPND have been involved with the majority of the acts of violence being more tilted in terms of perpetration by on the part of the ruling party. Of course, there have been instances where even UBND has been the initiator or instigator, but there are very few. And so we are concerned about that. And so we appeal to our leaders. We have seen what can happen in this country. Remember the gassing. When people felt they were not protected, when people felt their cries were landing on deaf ears, because remember, people were raising concerns. There were battles by Zambia police. These are just, acts of crime. They are not organized. Until people said, okay, enough is enough. And they began to take the law into their hands, and we saw what happened. Innocent lives were lost. 50 innocent people were killed. Why? Because people felt vulnerable, and when people are panicking, when people feel terrified, there's bound to be a backlash. And so no one is safe when violence takes place. And so let no one, be it those in the ruling party, be it those in the high and mighty and so-called secure places, no one will be safe when we set this country on fire. So that is just a general comment I'll make. But in terms of the details of militias and all those things, I think we'll keep on prodding our monitors on the ground to check, and where we find credible and sufficient evidence, we will speak, we will denounce, we will condemn, and we will also affirm what needs to be affirmed. And so when it comes to issues of what can we do as citizens,
yes,
first and foremost, you have the right even to institute, official complaints and petitions. People can also be able to exercise their right to raise their voice. People can be able to make sure that they are watchful during election day, for example, that no one will misbehave. One of the problems that is there is that we tend to leave it to chance. We think somebody else will do it for us. When we citizens say we don't want mediocrity, we don't want tribalism, we don't want violence, violence will end. But the challenge happens the challenge that these things continue because we will feel I'm safe. Maybe I belong to tribe A, B, C, D. I'm okay. We are not okay. By the time there's a backlash or a stray bullet hammers your child, or that panga or machete is hammering your relative, it is too late. So we need to be concerned, and we must have zero tolerance for violence. We need to check within our households. What is happening to my son? Where are they getting that money? What is going on? So we take interest, because we can micromanage within the families. Churches must take interest. We pray, yes. We preach, yes. But let's begin to interrogate some of these members. They are political players, and we tell them, sir, sorry, your behavior and what we stand for as a church are contradicting. And if you continue this behavior, we'll do A, B, C, D. So we need to begin to isolate and engage some of these people so that you speak to their conscience. Yes, we can have their wallets and their pocket power, but let's get to their souls. I think by doing those things will make a difference. But in a community, as citizens, you have a right to take legal action. You have got a right to demand for quality police care and protection. We have a right. It's just that we've tended to take things for granted. Somebody needs to begin to realize they're agitated people, and people are demanding for nothing other than proper policing, the police being able to apply the law or
and that brings me to my next question, Father Chikoya, before you tackle it in totality. How has been the conduct of the police during this election campaign period?
I think it is important to give credit where it is due. They've tried their best, but one thing that you should understand is that the police are working in very difficult circumstances. How some of the top brass are appointed is an issue. And so you expect, unless there's a rare breed, you find that people will be always careful how they operate, lest they bite the finger that feeds them. And so, but what we need to see, while appreciating the efforts that they've tried to put in place, we want to see a completely professional police service. There are men and women who who are capable. They are men and women who are trained. But let's allow them. Let them to operate. The cadres have become too powerful in the current scenario. You cannot have cadres overpowering police officers, cadres behaving with impunity. You have for example, the Kamgodi, so-called torture chambers. And these are known. You mean all our security apparatus don't know about such cases? Talk of intercity, talk of Soweto market, city market. These are known things. But the challenge that I see with the police is that their hands are tied. And, sometimes I even joke, they will even maybe ask, can we arrest this one? No, the police have to be the police, and they need to operate professionally. So in that sense, there are areas of concern. And, what happens is, if you are going to be heavy-handed and very effective with the other stakeholders like the opposition, and you are very feeble with the other side, the other camp will begin to get agitated, and they will feel there's no one to defend us, so what do? Of course, we don't want to promote anarchy, but people that are repeatedly brutalized, people that feel there's no one that is going to, they've lost hope. For example, in the judiciary, they lose hope in the police. That is a recipe for disaster. So we need to make sure that institutions like the Zambia police operate fairly and without fear or favor.
In case you are joining us, you are watching the Elections Watch TV series brought to you by the Alliance for Community Action. I'm hosting Father Chikoya from the Christian Churches Monitoring Group. We are discussing election monitoring. How prepared is the church to monitor the 2021 general elections? You can equally participate on the program by dialing the number that is scrolling on your screens right there. And proceeding with our program, how quickly is the police disposing of cases of violence or campaign material vandalism to reassure public and property safety?
Yeah, first and foremost, even the head of state is on record guiding that they need to regain public confidence.
Exactly. So
we are not speculating. Because sometimes people be saying we are just speculating, but these are official positions, that there is a perception. There could even be, divisions within the ranks and file of the service because of the different inclinations that people may have. The security wings and such institutions must be above board, must be non-partisan. But what we see in the case of vandalism, destruction of campaign materials of other stakeholders, that up to now.
Okay, we have a caller.
Yeah.
You are through to Camry TV. May we have your name and where you're calling us from? May we have your name and where you're calling us from? Okay, Mr. Sinyango, you can proceed with your contribution. Good evening. We seem to be having a bad line.
Why am I saying there's too much voice in that?
Mr. Sinyango, can you hold your phone properly? We can hardly get you. Okay, we had the bad line there. We couldn't get, but I know his line of thought was towards the issue of violence, though the line was bad. And Father Chikoya, how many politically related acts of violence has the monitoring group observed so far, and how have they been handled by the police? According to your assessments, I know you are on the ground monitoring various activities.
Yeah, basically, I think we had ended on the note where
yeah, you can tell
that process was a bit too slow, and we keep on hearing they're investigating. What is interesting is that if you walk outside, you see cameras there. Huge cost to the national budget. But of what use are they? Because I thought where people are going to be easily apprehended.
Yes, exactly.
With this state-of-the-art equipment. So with that equipment, you can still apprehend perpetrators. You are still investigating forever and ever. The police are critical to creating an environment that is enabling for peaceful, free, fair, and transparent elections. And so in this area, we are very concerned. If the law and the apprehension of perpetrators of violence is slow, then that also affects the delivery of justice to the people that have been victims of vandalism. And so in terms of acts of violence, according to our reports, during the period under review, there have been 13 acts of politically motivated violence, with the PF and UPND being the perpetrator and victim, respectively. In our reports, we document where instances of destruction of campaign materials involving about 11 of them, and 8 of these were against the UPND. In addition to these acts, CCMG observers documented 3 instances of arming by party supporters, and 2 by the PF and 1 by the UPND, meaning there was a deliberate program of arming a political party cadres, and there were 19 instances of party agents or cadres donning military fatigue or attire, and 13 of these were by the PF supporters and 6 of these were by the UPND supporters. We share this without fear or favor, and these are reports from the ground, and we call upon our security wings to have zero tolerance. Anybody found utilizing or even masquerading as a commander maybe should be taken through that gruesome military training. Then they come back and you know, earn that title. But you know, such casualness, you know, treating these matters casually will eventually lead to a scenario where you have gangs and groups that feel they are also military when they are not.
All right, you are through to Cabinet TV. May we have your name and where you're calling us from? Hello, you are through to Cabinet TV. Okay, you can proceed with your contribution, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You can go ahead.
I would just like to say something about the program. Good evening, Father Soko.
Good evening. How are you?
And good evening, moderator.
Good evening.
Yeah. Thank you. Just wanted to say something about the programs that we talk about and discuss on television.
Yes, you can proceed, sir.
And also on radio programs. I've been following keenly these programs. From every day I follow them. But the problem is we don't see any change out of the programs that we discuss about in our country. So my question is, when are we going to see these things change in our country for the betterment of this nation? Because we cannot be talking about the same thing and we don't see a change. Meaning we just waste our time and energy discussing about things we cannot change. So we want, when we discuss about things, the next day or after some time we see a change.
Interesting.
But talking about things, we talk about violence, we talk about things, everything, but they don't change. It is not giving anything to this nation. So, also to take a big role in making sure that these things are implemented by our government and other stakeholders. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you for your contribution, sir. Well, Father CHIKOYA, I interrupted you before he chipped in, but you can also marry it with his response. He says he doesn't see change. You see, we continue talking about violence in this election, in the previous elections, in the 2015 election, 2011, name it. The incidents of violence, issues of violence will come in, governance, poor governance will come in. What would be your response to that?
I think as a preacher and as a Christian, we are people of hope. You know, many pastors will resign if they were to follow that route.
Exactly.
Because you preach every Sunday, and if you were to check the behavior of members in some cases, you would find that for some, they tend to even like get worse. You know, so do you give up? Do you stop ministering? No. Because even God himself, he will say, these people are of hard hearing. In the Old Testament, they are stiff-necked. This is from the mouth of God. And so there will be some stubbornness, there will be resistance, but we shall never lose hope. We shall keep on pushing, because we believe that peace building is not a project. Peace building is a lifelong commitment. It requires attitude change, attitudes to change. It requires a mindset change. And there are people who are benefiting from the chaos. Maybe to answer, there are people who want the status quo to remain the same. There are people who want the poor to remain the poor because they feel like messiahs. And it has been stated that politicians will never ever solve our problems. And so if we want a peaceful Zambia, we must make it our agenda. And so once the grassroots, what should change? What we've noted is that we need to begin to engage the grassroots. That is why we were in Sorwezi, we were in Kitwe, we are engaging the people. And it was so encouraging to see party cadres, you know, hugging, and of course, being able to even be at the filling station and they can go to each other's cars and there's no violence. We are saying, let this be the spirit to engulf the whole country. So there are pockets of positivity going on. And maybe also through the media, let's begin to celebrate such things, to give them more prominence. Because sometimes we may spend more on the violent because they're a bit more sensational. But let's also begin to lift up these good stories where there are good practices. Like in Mansa, for example, we had the DP, UPND, PF in one service, a choral concert. They were all giving statements to respect each other and live together. The same in Sorwezi. You know, they would even jump into each other's cars and dance and they go home. But the problem comes when they're imported cadres into these towns and into these rural areas. And so then chaos comes. Who is financing them? Because there's no way a young man can come from Mchainda or Mtendere and go to Mpolokoso or go to Nakonde.
Using his personal transport.
How? And stay in a lodge. To go and stone somebody, to go and machete somebody. No, somebody is financing them. Who is that somebody? And if you are in the ruling party and these things are happening, every day we hear feeble condemnations. We condemn violence. We are fed up of these condemnations. Those that are given the mandate to govern this country should rise up and just say enough is enough. It is actually, you don't need to defend a lion. If I may use that analogy in the case of the police. Allow them to be police. You know, those days when the Hero Barretts came into Kanyama, they came into Chiwodia on an operation cleanup, you knew that discipline had come. And guns will be fished out. All kinds of things will be fished out. What has changed? They have the best equipment. Actually, they even bought state-of-the-art equipment. Why are we failing to do the work? And so we need to make sure that we begin to do the right things, not because of human beings, but for the sake of a better Zambia. What kind of Zambia, if you're a police officer, if you're a clergyman, a media person, what kind of Zambia do you want to pass on to your children and their children's children? What do you want to pass on? A disorganized, a totally collapsed country? No, that is not the Zambia we want to see. So what will change, sir, from Sorwezi is when we get upset ourselves with the status quo. Blessed are those who sit on a pin, for they shall surely rise. And what is a pin? The pin is the anger of seeing repeated acts of violence. And these people come from our homes. They come maybe even from our churches or societies where we are connected.
Exactly.
We don't manage it at that level. We need to manage it at that level. Because by the time somebody goes into political arena, into the religious arena at this age, they are already too, you know, it's like a sweet potato. When you want to straighten it, it will break. And so we need to make sure we get it right down there. I have hope that that we can get it right. For churches, the Sunday schools, let's just not keep them with memory verses. Let them begin to internalize values such as peace, love, joy, gentleness, respect for human dignity. They must be inculcated within them so that they grow in them, they live in them, they breathe them. We can and we must be able to build the Zambia we want to see. So yes, the picture may be gloomy, but I have hope that we can change that landscape. And change we must. But let's not just wait for somebody who has interest either to remain in power or to get in power to change, to bring that change we need. It's not going to happen. It is us in that market. When they come to you, and because you are dressed in green or red or black, and they begin to attack you, if other marketeers just come, then you beat all of us. Even if there are women, no matter how hefty those men are, I'm telling you, there will be power in numbers. An army of united ants will defeat an elephant. But we have an indifferent attitude. We have an attitude where we think somebody else will force the things. Oh, it's not my son, it's not my daughter. So they can machete them. No, we need to begin to say, no, you can't do this. I remember in the cases of some Al-Shabaab attack in East Africa or Kenya, they said, the Muslims, can you please come out? The Muslims refused to come out because they knew when they came, they left the bus, the Christians were going to be killed.
Exactly.
And they remained there. So we need to begin to have that attitude.
We have a caller. You are through to Community TV. Okay, we lost that one. But what is your position on the banned campaign rallies?
Our view is that the campaign rallies that are domiciled in one area are a better evil. If you are talking about COVID prevention and door to door, I will move with my motorcade from one end of Lusaka to the other, and if there's COVID within us, we are taking it wherever we are going. While if people are stationary, they will be confined in that area. And if we could have put an incentive of saying you must make sure all your supporters are masked up, they are following the procedures as stipulated under the COVID guidelines, you will find that the political parties will find that as an incentive. It could have even popularized the wearing of masks and following COVID guidelines. But going from town to town, because some motorcades can move from a distance, like even getting to Kafue.
Okay, we have a caller. We'll get back to that. You are through to Community TV.
Yes, please.
Yes, may we have your name and where you're calling us from?
Yes, I'm Banda Adam. I'm calling from Lusaka.
Okay, Mr. Banda, you can go ahead with your contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to thank Father CHIKOYA and the group for the work that they are doing. And secondly, is that the violence that is taking place, I think it's not being handled very fairly by the police. Because in most cases, the police, I think, have taken a position where they normally want to condemn the opposition, especially the UPND. Secondly, the defacing and destruction of campaign materials, like here in Lusaka, where I am, you see that a lot of UPND materials are the ones that are being defaced and destroyed. And for these other small parties, they are left untouched. And I don't really know what is happening. I really concur with Father CHIKOYA's statement to say that the police must be above board and they must not take sides per se, so that there is peace in this country. The other point which I want to share with the other viewers is that I was calling sometime this week to a home, and I was impressed with the attitude of various political parties. I was talking to, they were the opposition, the PF, they were together, and there was no violence at all. They were contributing freely actually on the phone, and it's what it should be. Yes, so that's what I want to say, that this political party. So we must indeed cherish and maintain peace, as it has been said by many speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution, sir.
Yeah.
Well, he was just concurring with
Yeah.
part of the statement, and he also added his opinion regarding the need to embrace peace ahead of the pause. Now, you were also on the floor when you were responding to the issue of banned campaigns.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can take it alongside
Yeah, so basically in our last comprehensive report, we had recommended that that could have been a better devil. At the end of the day, none of this is perfect, but the other one is better. You contain and you don't take it all over the place. But we are living in very difficult times. The COVID is very real, so I don't want to appear that we underrate the fact that COVID is real. I've survived it, and I'm not ashamed to say it's a disease, and we need to make sure that we do the right things, save lives, but at the same time, people have to market themselves. People have to ensure they sell their manifestos. Politics, building on what Mr. Banda said, is about ideology. It's about ideas. It's about your vision. It's about your manifesto. Forget those hefty-looking young men that you bring on board, because that shows that you have stopped thinking. Because when you think, you bring intellectuals on board, you bring thinkers, you bring people that are going to say, vote for us. This is what we stand for. These are our values. This is the direction we want the country to go to. It's not about, if you don't vote for this one, no development will come. That is archaic and immature politicking. There must be no part of Zambia that is neglected because they voted otherwise. We must make sure that resources are channeled accordingly, because you don't ask when you are getting tax. Are you opposition? Are you ruling party? Tax is collected across board, and resources must be channeled accordingly. So we need a battle of ideas. We need to see more debates. No one should shy away from debates. Nobody, from the ward councillor to the president, in the government and in the opposition. Let's showcase ourselves. I mean, if in the US you have the sitting president on a debate with the rival, that is when people will hear. They will understand who you are, what you stand for. Do you really understand your purpose? Do you have an agenda for this country? What Zambia needs are not transactional leaders, leaders that are in it for themselves. Me and my family and my tribe. No, we want a Zambia, a leader that is transformational, a leader that is going to come on board. And even if they serve 2 terms or 1 term, but they will do their best to serve the people of this country in such a way that they are better than they were yesterday. That is what should be happening. And how do people know that? If you are shielded and if you can't debate. So we need to see more of such. In the context of COVID, definitely we need to see more debates. we need to see more coverage, especially by the public media, given to all stakeholders without fear or favor. So, but sometimes we find that there are challenges. So you ban political rallies, and then there are challenges. But we commend ECZ. They've talked about the need for ZNBC to be able to ensure that all stakeholders are included, and we are seeing some improvements there. As church, we have also engaged ZNBC. We've engaged the IBA, and we'll continue. We're not going to give up, even if things don't change to the desired extent. It's a long-term commitment. There'll be short-term interventions, but ultimately we want to see proper legal frameworks that allow these institutions to operate in the manner they're supposed to operate.
Under a minute, since the suspension of the political campaign rallies, has the suspension been fairly enforced? We see opposition crying foul to say probably the head of state, being the head of state, would use his influence, but that would also amount to campaigns. But according to your assessment, is the suspension being fairly implemented?
I don't think so. You tend to not notice. I'm looking forward to that day when a gathering that is government linked is stopped because it doesn't meet COVID guidelines. That is unthinkable. So if these guidelines are really meant to be fairly applied, COVID does not go on off duty when you are touring or government. You know that it is also, people get excited. If you do, we did a simple budget analysis of the 21 budget. To move a president is expensive. And so you need to really ask, if you are in that cabinet, is it really necessary? When you have a district commissioner, those times when we even had provincial ministers, but now we don't have them, your permanent secretaries, why not allow them to do the needful? It will be cost effective. We are talking of ill-equipped hospitals. We are talking of challenges in the education sector. Children cannot learn on the same level because those in the compounds and villages don't have access to internet that is reliable, even electricity. So why not channel such resources to ensuring that there's improved communication, there's quality health, there's quality education. So we have a challenge of not fairly enforcing these, and as long as you do that, other stakeholders will feel shortchanged, and so we must make sure that whatever we make in terms of short-term guidelines in view of emergencies are always all-encompassing, and they are not tilted to disadvantage other people. When you weaponize a pandemic, when you politicize a pandemic, then you make people risk their lives because they may disobey out of disobedience when the reality is that the disease is real.
Exactly.
But because it's not, the manner in which it is being handled makes them feel it's being used against them. So let's have a situation where our politicking, our campaigns are done in such a way that we are a blessing to one another.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I understand the church is part of the community, but is the monitoring group, what is the monitoring group when it comes to campaigns in churches?
Churches are churches. There must be no campaigns. I commend some of the bishops that have written, and we have also guided. There's no need to come to church in a political party outfit. When we come to church, we are children of God. Let's get there in our ordinary clothes and worship God. When we are giving, there are channels and facilities for giving. There must be no VIP treatment in terms of giving procedures, because when that happens, you begin to give prominence to others. So when people come to give, let them give like everybody else and do the honorable acts of serving their God in the best way possible. Should politicians come to church? Yes, they should. But should they be given the microphone? No. Because they shouldn't, because then you should give every other person that comes to church the microphone. So we need to make sure that we separate and make that pulpit a sacred space, a space where the gospel of Jesus Christ will be preached and not the gospel of a political party. In fact, there isn't even a gospel or the agenda or the message of a political party. So we need to make sure that we also, as clergy, let's not get excited with gifts. One of the greatest challenges that I see with the church, in many churches, you start huge church projects and yet you don't have the money. And your faith is in the politician. The faith of the church must be in Jesus Christ. We must plan over a reasonable period. We must make sure every member, regardless of how small they can give, contribute to that bigger agenda and budget. And within a certain period, you will be able to have your church. You'll be able to have that project. But we want to accelerate. We want to have microwave projects. In a microwave, something that can take 1 hour to cook, may be cooked in very few, in a short time. So we need to make sure that we plan. The Bible talks about a man going to war or a king going to war with 5,000 and another is coming with 10. You must assess and be able to realize, I can't fight this battle. I need to do A, B, C, D. So let's make sure that we are prayed up, but we plan. But ultimately, churches need to begin to seriously, I know there are others that have begun to invest, but churches must invest to be self-sustainable. One of the greatest weaknesses that compromises the church, and many of us as clergymen and women, is poverty. And a poverty stricken church is a scandal to the world and a vulnerable church. So a church must self-propagate, a church must self-govern, a church must be self-sustainable. This is an agenda that is godly. We should pray, but invest. You can invest in Airtel, you can invest in NAPSA and all other entities. It's high time we woke up as church. We have prayed enough, we have stepped on the spirit of poverty and all it's not going anywhere as long as we are remaining and we are stuck to one source of income. And so that is one of the areas I think that compromises. And at the end of the day, when you have a compromised religious sector, it can have an impact in terms of the credibility of election.
Then what is CCMG's observation on the use of public resources during elections?
I think we have noted that in terms of the usage of public resources, they've gone on without let or hindrance. State vehicles are used. Vehicles without number plates are used. Who knows who they belong to? They could be GRZ vehicles, you know. And so we've noted the number of instances, about 4 government venues, you know, are used for political, partisan political activities, which are a violation of 15K of the Electoral Code of Conduct. And so, again, civil servants, there have been instances where they've operated like cadres. You can't be going to a campaign meeting and you are there to distribute relief food. There's nothing like relief food there. That is campaigning. And so we need to make sure that such are not part and parcel. But unfortunately, they keep on recurring. District commissioners, for example, are involved in partisan politics, which is a clear violation of Section 2 of the Electoral Code of Conduct. And so those are areas of concern. People are being introduced, flown around in the government chopper, for example, in the case of the VIP and the running mate. So those are areas of concern. The playing field must be level. And it will never be 100% level, but resources that are government must not be used for partisan politics.
I want you to talk on these 2 questions for me, and under a minute, what is your comment in terms of tribalism which has emerged, and also are you monitoring the printing of ballot papers?
Tribalism is a cancer. It should not be joked about. We have categorically denounced it in the past, and in the recent past we affirmed the decision by ECZ to ban one of the political figures because of hate speech, and we also issued a statement. So collectively we issue, but also as individual mother bodies, condemning what happened where somebody was encouraging that vote for a particular person because they are from a particular region. That we are saying no to, and it should not be part of the culture. We should vote for a Zambian president and not a Tonga, Bemba, Lozi, or whatever president. We need a competent man or woman, a visionary, a decisive leadership, good steward, person of high caliber. That is what we need. Are we monitoring the ballot printing? I would say things are in the pipeline, and sooner than later you will visibly see an indication. So we are working actively to ensure, although we may maybe join in a bit late. Yeah.
As we come to towards the end of our program, Father Chikoya, I want to get specifics on what activities will CCMG be holding on poll day, as well as is Zambia ready enough to host an election during a pandemic?
CCMG will monitor the elections. We will deploy a considerable number of monitors, and we will undertake the parallel voter tabulation. And we have been monitoring the pre-election period, we are monitoring the actual election and the post-election period. So actively, we are well prepared. We have the relevant staff, competent staff that are already on the ground. You know, over 10 provincial coordinators, a secretariat. We have stopped being active just during an election year. So we are active throughout, but when there's less, we have less staff. But now we're at full peak. So we are ready, and we will undertake. And there'll be roving monitors. There'll be clergy that will be also on standby and can be deployed as a rapid intervention, especially the senior ones where issues escalate out of control. And so we will contribute. We are also involved in trying to facilitate dialogue, and sooner than later, I think recently you noted that a peace initiative was launched. This time co-convened with ZCID. We are saying let's move forward and avoid what happened in the past. So we hope we can move forward together. And also there are stakeholders like human rights, laws, a multi-faceted kind of approach. So we are very committed, we are very game to do our best on election day and the pre and post-election period. Of course, we have partners, international, local, that are working with us.
Are we ready to hold the elections amid the COVID-19?
Yes, we are. If we didn't, then ECZ was not going to be printing the ballot papers. So that is an indication to us that we are going to proceed with the elections. But Uganda did it. The USA did it. So COVID is here to stay, but it is how we handle the things. I feel we should give it a benefit of doubt and do our best.
Thank you for coming for the program, Father CHIKOYA.
It's a pleasure. This was my maiden interaction with Camnet TV. Looking forward to many more.
Thank you.
May Zambia bless and guide us, and let there be peace. God bless Zambia, and let there be peace in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our dear viewers, you've been watching the Election Watch TV series that is brought to you by the Alliance for Community Action. We've been hosting our Father CHIKOYA from CCMG, and our topic of discussion has been election monitoring. How prepared is the church to monitor the 2021 general elections? I've been Patrick Soko. Till next time when we come with another interesting edition of The Verdict. Stay tuned.
Okay.